You're invited. Join Dane County Humane Society for Toto's Gala on Friday, March 14th at Monona Terrace. Enjoy a night of cocktails, dinner, dancing, and, best of all, adorable animal greeters. Bid on incredible items in their silent auction and discover how the dreams we dare to dream for animals come true. Your support helps DCHS provide life-saving care for animals in need. Don't miss this unforgettable evening. Reserve your spot now at giveshelter.org/Toto. Today on CityCast Madison. Welcome to the Friday News Roundup. All eyes are on transportation news this week, from Metro to our airport and record spending flying into our capital city for judicial races. It's Friday, February 28th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. All right. Joining me today is the leader of this here podcast, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. Ready to talk about transportation.
Yes, Transpo Day. And Rob Thomas, our wonderful newsletter editor. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Bianca. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We've got some strange, interesting, and tough news. Haley, you're kicking us off this week with a big story over on Milwaukee Street.
Yeah, so I've got a story on Milwaukee Street, a story about Metro. And normally when we talk about Metro, it's usually to discuss like some cool new development or a route update, etc. that they're doing. But this week, we've got a couple of troubling stories coming out of the department. So let's start with the latest. Earlier this week on Tuesday night, a Metro bus crashed head on into a building over on the east side. And y'all know that this is like literally my worst fear, people driving into buildings. We've talked about it on the show before. But according to a police incident report, the crash happened after a passenger on a bus attacked a Metro driver, causing him to lose control of the vehicle and crash into Asian House Restaurant at 1 Dempsey Road, which for context is right off of Milwaukee Street over by the Eastside Woodmans. And according to a witness report, a female passenger became upset when she learned that the bus wasn't going to her desired destination, and she started pushing and shoving the driver, which again caused him to lose control of the bus. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured, but paramedics did evaluate 2 people, including the driver, for minor injuries, and 1 person was taken to the hospital. So this is truly some scary stuff. And, you know, Rob, I know we wrote about this incident in yesterday's newsletter. Like, what was your reaction when you saw the damage? Because, like, it was a scary scene for sure.
Oh, it was shocking. I mean, I put a couple of photos in the Madison Minutes newsletter, and one was of the front of the bus, and that big window is just completely cracked and smashed. I mean, the bus went, you know, a fair ways into the restaurant to the point where when crews come, they not only had to clear out debris, they had to shore up to make sure the whole building didn't collapse. It all not only does it have Asian House in it, but also has this QPS employment, which was also sort of more indirectly damaged. And one thing I didn't think about was that's a Tuesday night, so the restaurant was closed.
Thankfully.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it just looked like something has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah.
It's as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, it was truly a scary sight. But, you know, this whole terrible situation, it really has me thinking about all of the things that our bus drivers endure on a daily basis, whether that is literally unruly passengers, having to help out people that are confused by the new system. On top of that, they're dealing with traffic all day long. You know, it's a lot to go through for a job. And last week, some Metro drivers made their grievances known by refusing to work overtime hours. And this caused some major delays to service last Thursday. And, you know, I just want to note that, like, this was not a strike. Public employees, like city workers, are not granted the right to strike, but this coordinated action of refusing overtime really underscores how heavily Metro relies on overtime work to get the job done. As it would happen, Metro workers, they're in the midst of contract negotiations with the city. They are represented by the Teamsters Local 120, and their most recent contract with the city actually expired at the end of 2024. So they have been without contract for the entirety of 2025 so far. And the TLDR of what they want is more money, because that's what everyone wants. That's what everyone needs. You know, from what I've seen online via news reports and folks talking on social media, drivers are just frustrated that their wages haven't kept up with inflation. Meanwhile, it just keeps getting more and more and more and more and more expensive to live in Madison. And we actually just had a really great conversation with the mayor, Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway, about this. So we'll throw a link to that in our show notes. Definitely check it out, because, you know, we talked to her about this, about affordability when it comes to housing and who can afford to live in Madison, and what Madison needs to be doing in order to make sure that the people who literally run this city can afford to live here. We also asked the mayor about these negotiations, and understandably, she was pretty quiet about the matter. She wasn't able to give any details because, of course, these negotiations are confidential. But I know that they are talking still more this week, and we really hope that both parties are working toward a solution soon and quickly, because Metro is set to expand services into Monona starting Monday. So another exciting development, but hopefully we'll have drivers to take those bus routes, right?
Yeah, it's a lot going on. It would have been interesting to learn more about the negotiations, but as you said, by process, typically folks on both sides don't share what's happening, but that's not what's happening. And so that's what the mayor shared with us, you know, like, we're bargaining in good faith, and they're getting kind of the pressure from bus drivers who are like, well, we're not, some are just not showing up to shifts as well. There's just frustration all around, I imagine.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to a labor expert just to see like why somebody in general would do that kind of one day stoppage. Like when Starbucks employees would go on strike for or not strike for one day, that's not usually a sign that negotiations are going well. But
yeah,
obviously being on the outside, we don't know that.
Yeah, actually, well, News 3, Channel 3000, they actually did talk to like a labor professor in some of their reporting. And he was saying that this sort of delay in service, this disruption to service, like it really does sort of make people think about the genuine human beings who are running these day-to-day processes. But, you know, while it caused massive delays last Thursday, he also mentioned that like these bus drivers are probably very sympathetic to the people that they are giving rides to every day. You know, like Metro is a vital service that countless people utilize every single day, whether that's to get to work or to get to an appointment and what have you. So, you know, it has to be so calculated on the driver's side, because as much as they want to make a point, I really don't think that they want to screw up anyone else's life in that regard either. So it's a really tough situation for sure.
I also wanted to, you know, with the disaster that happened, and luckily people were not hurt and that the business wasn't open, like all of these things, it could have been a lot worse. And
for sure,
all I can think of too is just like people and mental health. Like, people are not okay right now. For someone to attack their bus driver, you know, like thinking about services, like, and the fact that there is this threat and active, you know, cuts to services from the federal level, like, people need resources and help right now more than ever. So mental health is really on the mind.
Yeah, and mental health care services for these drivers too, especially, again, like I said, with the stress that they're dealing with day to day. So fingers crossed that there's something like that in their contract. You know, we're rooting for everyone on this one, because it truly is just for the betterment of the city, for the betterment of the drivers, if everyone is happy.
Yeah. Well, we've got more transportation news as we discuss something coming out of Dane County Airport. But before we get into that, let's take a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by the Nissan Armada Pro 4X. With a twin-turbo V6 engine ready to propel your adventures, up to 8,500 pounds of towing capacity to haul all your favorite toys and space for 8 passengers, Nissan's most powerful car yet will chew up and spit out anything you throw at it. Learn more about the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada at nissanusa.com. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
All right, fly like an eagle. Or like a plane. Rob, you got the story?
Yeah, I'm not going to sing it, although maybe I should. Yeah. So I just flew like an eagle. I flew out of Dane County Regional Airport last week and went to Colorado to go see friends and family. And I was not alone. The airport was hopping, and that's part of an upward trend. The airport saw its second most passenger traffic levels ever last year, serving 2,347,999 total passengers. And so I said that was number 2. The most passenger traffic ever was in 2019, right before the COVID-19 pandemic. So that kind of indicates that air travel in Madison has fully rebounded after the big pandemic drop in 2020. Jeff Riggles in the Wisconsin State Journal reported that a big factor for the increase was the airport added that expansion to the south terminal, which added, I think, 3 gates, maybe 4 gates. Anyway, bring the total number up to 16. And that means boosting the number of departures by more than 1,300 and the number of passengers by more than 126,000 just from those gates alone. The airport also added new destinations, and there's a new airline called Breeze Airways, which offers direct flights to Tampa and Orlando. Can you guys guess the most popular destinations out of Dane County? I just mentioned 2 of them.
Orlando.
Right?
I do feel like Denver is probably up there.
Denver's up there, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Colorado.
Had good company. And the others are Phoenix. I've also flown direct to Phoenix and Washington, D.C. And so to me, it's kind of funny. We're still called
Lobbyists.
a regional airport. But you can really get a lot of places direct now from Dane County. And those upward trend lines match nationwide trends for air travel going up and up every year. 2024 was a big hop over 2023 as well. Now, of course, the headlines, there's been a series of high-profile aircraft accidents, including the awful fatal crash in Washington, D.C. in January. And then there was that crash landing in Toronto a couple weeks ago where the plane flipped over on the runway.
God,
yeah. I know. Believe me, that was definitely on my mind when I was flying. And I think it's on a lot of people's minds. And people are wondering, is it safe to fly now? Has it become less safe? But if you look at the stats from the National Transportation Safety Board, they say that air travel is about as safe as it's ever been. One difference, I think, is maybe the media coverage, in that after that DC crash in particular, you're starting to see headlines about accidents involving small private planes getting more media attention, even though those have always been more numerous than ones involving commercial airliners. So that may be making people worry a little more.
Interesting. Like maybe it's just that like observer bias. Like we're looking for it now.
When you're worried about it, then you start seeing it. And then, when people click on those stories, then the news people go, oh, well, I should have more stories about airline incidents. So it's a sort of a feedback loop, I guess. So one thing actually, too, that should be concerned about that is actually surging is the flu. We're sort of hitting it right now. According to the CDC, Wisconsin is one of 26 states reporting very high influenza activity last week, and most other states are not far behind that. So if you do fly, you might want to consider masking up as a precaution. So
we got a lot of bummer stories this week.
Well, I mean,
No, we're bringing I'm with you. We're bringing it for the good of the people.
That's right.
We're getting sick.
I mean, it's a good news, bad news situation. I mean, have you guys changed your travel habits at all post-pandemic? Are you back to flying as much as you were before?
I don't want to fly. And I know we just brought up this great point about observer bias, but I can't help but know at the federal level that they're like cutting staff.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is what it is. But I'm a little weirded out and nervous about just the uncertainty around what's happening at the federal government and how that might impact our air.
Very fair. Very fair.
Yeah. So I'm going to be driving my next vacation, maybe the next one, but that's just me. I'm a scared person.
It definitely has made me think twice. Like, I don't have any immediate, big travel plans on the books. My most recent travel was to the exotic getaway of New Lisbon, Wisconsin. So didn't need to take a plane to get there, thankfully. But it definitely does have me thinking twice. It has me thinking about homeboy Sean Duffy. We know him as Wisconsin congressman, but now he is the United States Secretary of Transportation. He's got his work cut out for him. It is the end of February, and you don't want this much news about transportation as we have been having. And yeah, like you said, Rob, like maybe it's on the media, like maybe we're just over reporting it now, but also like having eyes on these situations, it is just kind of illuminating. Again, it's all of this work, but done by people behind the scenes or people who are kind of just like right in front of you. Bus drivers, like maybe you don't notice them, but they are literally keeping you safe on the road. And same with air traffic controllers. Like you don't see them, but they are in the pilot's ear, making sure that you are safe in the sky. And, like you mentioned, Bianca, like we're seeing a lot of staffing cuts on that end with the FAA. And that is what makes me really nervous to fly when you don't have as many literal eyes on you from the ground telling you like, yes, you can land, or no, don't do it yet. So,
and a lot of stress on the people who are remaining, right? I mean,
exactly. Yeah. And
they don't know what's going on.
Stress.
Yeah.
And pressure.
And people are just jerks at the airport,
Yeah, people are so mean.
I don't know. It's maybe not related to the safety, but just someone attacking the local bus driver. I don't know. I just don't want to be around any of it. Not our buses, but in the airports.
I think especially too when people are traveling, especially at the airport, people get just like really selfish. They're like, it's all about me. And like, I need to catch my flight. And like personally, when I get to the airport, I'm like, I release my inhibitions truly. Like whichever way this airport carries me, that's the way I'm going. If I make my flight, great. If I don't, something else will happen. Like I really just try not to get upset at the airport because so many people are so angry and for no reason. And I think it used to be because I witnessed this as a child, like traveling with my boomer parents or like my aunt specifically, like if something went wrong, you could get mad and you could get results. You could get that first class upgrade. Like you could get put on the next flight right away. But these days you get mad and they're not doing anything for you. So I'm just like, it's just not even worth it. It's not worth the time. Like go do a breathing exercise instead. It's simply not worth it. But maybe do the breathing exercise with the mask on because I know they're saying that this jump in flu has been attributed to some major end of the year travel in 2024. So yeah, let's keep each other safe, keep yourself safe, keep your mind safe.
Be kind, be calm.
Please.
Please. Period. So we've been talking about flights and flu flying in. We're going to talk about outside money flying into our state Supreme Court race. So we're going to do that in a second. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
This is an ad from BetterHelp Online Therapy. We always hear about the red flags to avoid in relationships, but it's just as important to focus on the green flags. If you're not quite sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify those qualities so you can embody the green flag energy and find it in others. BetterHelp offers therapy 100% online, and sign-up only takes a few minutes. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
All right, big money is flying out of pockets and flying in from out of state for what? Our contentious race around the open seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That will impact the ideological leanings of our state's highest court. So it's a big deal. That race is between Dane County Judge Susan Crawford and former Republican Attorney General Brad Schimmel. And it's already projected to draw historic spending levels. Money, money, money. It's expected to be the most expensive judicial election in American history. So again, our state is making that kind of history. So what is the race looking like specifically around funds? WPR show Wisconsin Today interviewed the executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, which is a watchdog for campaign finance. And I learned a lot from that story. That director, Nick Ramos, said that at this point in the race, they're seeing unprecedented spending, that individuals are maxing out their allowed contributions. The max is $20,000, and over a month out from this election, 60 people have already donated that. That's the max, but there are actually other ways to get money for candidates, like contributing to a party that supports them. Actually, this specific watchdog filed an ethics complaint against the candidate Brad Schimmel, who said at a town hall to folks, quote, "max out and then come to the party. They'll send me a check." Judges aren't supposed to solicit campaign contributions. It's nonpartisan, but obviously in many ways it's functionally not. That's an old story and tune, but still relevant. If you're paying attention to this race at all, you've likely seen that billionaires are now in the race. Mr. Elon Musk has a PAC called Building America's Future, and the story said that he's given around $3 million so far to the race. To quote Ramos from Wisconsin Today, he said, quote, "With the numbers that we're looking at right now, we're projecting to reach at least $75 million when it's all said and done, which would be a $20 million leap since the last time we had a state Supreme Court race." To quote the great Method Man, "cash rules everything around me, cream get the money, dollar bill, yeah."
There it is.
There it is.
I'm still stuck on Brad Schimmel saying the quiet part out loud. Like, sir, I mean, I appreciate that you said it. Like, are we past the point of pretending that this is nonpartisan? Like, it's a Supreme Court race. Yes, judges and the judicial branch, it's supposed to be nonpartisan. You're supposed to follow the rule of the law. Brad Schimmel has a very clear agenda that aligns with Republicans and conservative folks. Susan Crawford has her own that aligns with Democrats and liberal folks. Like, I don't know, like, I don't want to pretend anymore. So maybe it's a good thing that he said it out loud because, like, you're saying what we're all thinking. It's still a big kind of yikes moment because, again, you're not supposed to say that, buddy, but he did. So it's just like, all right, maybe this could lead to some sort of change in the processes.
Right.
I hate talking about Elon Musk, but we got to talk about Elon Musk. The other story about Elon Musk and his whole pack, the advertisements that are coming out. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was this one advertisement that he ran against Susan Crawford, but
It wasn't her.
yeah, they had a photo of Susan Crawford, but the wrong Susan Crawford. It was this like Harvard professor, and people were just like dunking on him for it. And I am not, I want to put this on the record, I am not an Elon Musk apologist. I had a really hard time telling those two women apart. I'm not going to lie. I thought they looked so similar.
You weren't paid $3 million to get the right Susan
That's
Crawford.
so
You think you would get it right for $3 million. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, and I think, Elon is such a polarizing figure that him putting his money in the race, I think could have a real backlash, honestly, because I saw Susan Crawford say at a campaign stop, boy, when I was a little girl, I never dreamed I'd grow up to fight the richest man in the world. And it's just like, it really shines a spotlight on how the big money has taken over these races and are sort of trying to, manipulate them to their own ends. Elon Musk has nothing to do with Wisconsin. It's hard to put the genie back in the bottle now when it comes to dark money and campaign funding, but it's always good to, as you say, just have it laid out there honestly about what's going on and what the forces are that are trying to control things behind the scenes.
And like, if he was here, if he was a Wisconsinite, he probably would know that's not her. He would be involved. And that's the thing. It's like, it's outside. You're not from here.
You don't even go here.
I agree with you, Rob. Now that you say that, I do think that this could just be a huge moment for Democrats and for Crawford to like really rally people against Elon. Like, it doesn't even have to be against Brad Schimmel.
Right.
It's like, look who Elon's supporting. No, we want to fight that. And there are tons of people, whether they voted for Donald Trump or not, who don't like Elon Musk, and they'll put their money where their mouth is, right? I'm very curious to see how the power of the people reacts to the situation here.
And I want to share the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, which is the watchdog that the story, talked to. They said they did a statewide poll last week and had 88% of respondents, from Republican, Democrat to independents, evenly split, reporting that they think that money is a problem when it comes to our politics. So Wisconsinites don't want this. There are a lot of modest Wisconsinites, people who are not into the showy thing. I do wonder sometimes about Eric Hovde. That's the way that they tried to paint him, is like he's an outsider but he has, connections here. So that's more complicated than Elon, but he's a millionaire. Like that, playing that sort of narrative when we are in a populist movement in the country and people without means are upset and need things. Yeah, that might actually have some kind of impact. I do want to note as well, we've got our eyes on this race right now, of course. We have Supreme Court races every year until 2030. So buckle in.
No. Why would you say that?
Because I saw it and I was like, say what? Say what?
Oh, no.
Yeah. So more egregious spending expected on the public positions to come. Wow.
Oh,
anywho,
good.
Yeah, so
can't wait.
Yeah, I take no joy in saying that this is going to break records, and it's like we just broke records last year.
I was gonna say the record we're breaking is our own. Like the record we're breaking, like we did this, and now we're doing it again, and we'll do it again next year, I guess.
Like we'll do this Friday News Roundup again next week. It's gonna happen. We're talking about sharing some of our feelings and thoughts. One thing that's on my mind, if there's only some kind of law that could protect us from outside spending that diminishes the individual's voice in elections.
If only.
If only. LOL, we had one. Anyway, while we're sharing thoughts and feelings, how are you doing? Like, what's on your mind right now? We know that the political newscape is flowing in at us as if it's coming from a fire hose. We're here with you, trying to keep up. Do you have questions about what the future of life looks like here in our capital city? How you might be impacted living in Madison under this new administration? We asked you this last week on our roundup, and Ben, a data scientist at UW, left us a voicemail. Here's a snippet.
I'm curious what could happen to Madison's economy given the pauses on federal funding and limits on the indirect costs for National Institutes of Health funding as well. UW-Madison employs a lot of people and hires a lot of contractors for their work.
Ben, thank you so much for sending in that message. To everyone listening, you can hear his whole voicemail on our Monday show, because we're actually talking about just that, the threat to federal research funding, with the director of the Wisconsin Institute for Discovery and a microbiology PhD student and co-president of TAA, UW-Madison's grad student union. So definitely tune in for that. We want to talk about the things you want to know about. So back to our ask. In the spirit of Ben, let us know, what questions do you have about the future of life in Madison? Do you have questions about policies or changes to funding sources for your schools, workplace, community centers? We'd love to hear from you. Call in, leave us a voicemail at 608-318-3367. That's 608-318-3367. This is your city. We want to hear from you. And by the way, you can also stay anonymous if you'd like. So consider joining the conversation or email us at madison@citycast.fm. All right, y'all. It's been a week. Thanks for rounding up the news with me. As always, Haley Sperling, thanks so much.
Thanks, Bianca.
And Rob Thomas, it's been a pleasure.
We did it.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos and Elizabeth Kama. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. Don't forget, you can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And hey, if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who loves to travel? See you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city. Until then, have a great weekend. And take a breath because I'm running out of it. As I'm hunched, I should sit up.
And I'm like shrimp mode.
I'm getting smaller and smaller as we talk.